I'm your host, Avik, and today we are diving into a theme that I think resonates with so many men, whether we admit it out or not, because fear and the self doubt. So, how do we handle those moments when the weight of expectation feels heavier than the barbell we have ever lifted? Or how do we rise above the burnout, insecurity, and the quiet battles that no one else sees? Well, so to help us unpack this, I have an incredible guest with me today. Please welcome Sean. So, welcome to the show, Sean.
Eric, it's great to be here, man. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'll quickly love to introduce you with Sean. So, Sean is a men's strength coach and the founder of McManus Strength and Nutrition. So, his mission is powerful, like to help Christian men reclaim their strength, their purpose, and their leadership through faith, fitness, and discipline. So, after burning out in the corporate world, he chose faith over fear and rebuilt his life as a man. So, a husband, a father, and a leader. So, today he challenges men everywhere to rise above mediocrity, take the radical ownership, and live boldly in their God given calling. So, I'll not take much of a time, dear listeners. Uh, Sean, I mean, it's really a pleasure to have you here on today.
It's just great to be here, man. I'm looking forward to getting into this with you, and I hope we inspire some guys today.
Exactly. Yep. So, Sean, like as you talk about hitting that wall of burnout and the disconnection between choosing a new path, so if you can take us back to that season, like what did fear and self doubt actually feel like in your day to day life?
Yeah, so
Mhm.
it definitely doesn't feel good.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a season where
Mhm.
felt like I was doing the right things because growing up, everybody told me that I needed to get a job, get a good job, a good safe job, and that was how I was going to support my family. But the longer I was in that position
Uh,
with the company where I was at, the more dissatisfied I was, and the more hopeless I felt because I was in a position where the I needed to be able to make more financially, but I was kind of capped where I was at. There wasn't really um, there wasn't any room for advancement in the company at that time, even though I was there for almost a decade. I had tried to move up a couple of times and had gotten kind of turned down for that stuff. So
mm,
it was just I wasn't being challenged on a day-to-day basis, mentally, physically, anything like that. And it was just, I would go in, I would do my job, I would leave, and I would get paid. And so, at the end of each month, I was running out of money. We didn't have enough. We're a single income household, and we had our needs were met for a while, and then it came a point in time where I was pulling some out of savings every month,
mhm.
just to make ends meet, and we weren't eating beans and rice or anything like that, but
Yeah.
it was just a point where I wanted to do more. I wanted to provide more for my family, and I wanted to feel more satisfied and fulfilled day to day in my work, and I just wasn't getting it from that specific job and that specific time in life.
I agree. I totally agree. Yep. So, when did it shift from being a private struggle to a divine wake up call?
Yeah, so there's a lot of avenues we can go there, but the biggest thing that happened was my wife got pregnant with our second son. And so, I mentioned we were kind of already pretty tight financially. And then when she got pregnant with him, I'd kind of been thinking about leaving, planning on leaving for quite some time. I just hadn't pulled the trigger yet. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I was kind of getting caught in this analysis paralysis syndrome. and just continuing to do what I knew to do, which was just go to work and get paid and do the best that I could. But when
Mhm.
she got pregnant with our second son, it was I knew in that moment that I was on a time crunch. From that point on, it's like, okay, you're already tight strapped financially. This is obviously another mouth to feed, another blessing from God, and that is going to cost more money. So from that point on, it became very, very serious. It's like, all right, something has to change, and that's really what kind of pushed me out the door.
Uh, Understood. Yeah. I think so many men listening know that feeling because on paper, everything looks fine, but inside, the weight is actually crushing. So I'd say, like, your story reminds us that sometimes breakdowns are really breakthroughs in disguise. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And it wasn't really at that time. I wouldn't say that there's definitely been times when the pressure, really, really felt crushing, but at that time it was more, um, it was scary, but it was exciting at the same time as well, because I knew that I'd been wanting to make a move for quite some time. And, I think God kind of knew that he had to do something that would force me out, which was a good thing. And it was an absolute blessing. But, it was definitely scary. It was good. It's a good pressure because as men we're designed to carry that kind of pressure. So at that time, it was a good pressure, but it was definitely pressure, and that pressure is often what we need to, make those uncomfortable decisions and take that action to get us to the next place and get us to where we're supposed to be.
Agree. Agree. So, like, you often, tie overcoming fear directly to the faith. Um, how does leaning on God's strength give men something that self help or kind of willpower alone can't provide? What do you have to say?
Yeah. So willpower alone will only get you so far. We all have had those instances where
Mm.
we felt very strongly about something, and we start moving in that direction wholeheartedly, and then soon enough it just goes away. Eventually your willpower, eventually your motivation, you run out of, and eventually that just goes away. So leaning on God for that, what I'm doing now, I feel very called by God to do. So there was a deep conviction in me to do what I'm doing now. And it wasn't always there. I had to kind of throw some darts at the wall and see what stuck, and, take some action and see which way he guided me. But once I got here, it's at this point I'm very convicted on what I'm doing. So that conviction has led to the discipline to, get up and do what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. But leaning on him for your strength, I don't know how else to be strong. There's only so much, as humans, there's only so much strength or self-discipline or motivation, or however you want to put it. And it eventually runs out because we're not God. So leaning on the strength that he gives us is really the only thing I know to do. And it's the only thing that has, gotten me through those hard times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, um, wow. So, like, have there been moments where faith felt like the only thing that held you together?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So part of my story is when I left the corporate job that I was in, I went to a solar company and started knocking on doors as a door to door salesman. So that was my first, 1099 job once I left my W 2.
Mm.
Excuse me. So that was 100% commission based, and I had never done that before. I, came from a salary position, and but this company had promised. They said, "Hey, if you work hard and learn fast, you can make a lot of money quickly." And I was like, "Well, I can do both of those things." So that's the direction that I went, and the the faith piece, really only having that to really hold on to, is I can remember the transition from, leaving my W-2 to that 1099 position. And there was a period of time during that where we were almost out of finances. And, I had some things in the works. I had some things happening and moving, but it wasn't going to be for like another month or like another couple of weeks. And so it was a really, really pretty scary time. And I mean, yeah, my faith is all that I had. And I would just continuously, go into God's word and pray, and really anchor my focus on him. And there's a passage, I believe it's in Matthew, that talks about God taking care of the birds of the air. And it talks about how much more important are we as humans made in his image than the birds of the air. So we are not to worry about what we're going to eat or drink. We are not to worry about the clothes that we're going to wear. And that's the passage that I just went back to. And I read that every day, usually multiple times a day, during that time, because my faith is all that I had to lean onto. The finances weren't there.
Amazing. Wow. Wow. So, I mean, it's really powerful because in a culture that I mean, idolize independence, uh, also I'd say admitting that we need divine strength feels like both the humility and the courage. So, uh, from there, in your coaching, right? You talk about reclaiming the physical strength area as a spiritual responsibility. So how do faith and fitness, according to you, intersect when it comes to defeating the self-doubt?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. The first one, so I work primarily with men. Actually, I work only with men. So when it comes to as a man, we are called to lead our families. We are called to protect our families. So one of our responsibilities as men is to protect our families, to protect those around us in our communities,
Mm,
to protect those that cannot protect themselves. So when we think about that, obviously that means more than just physically protecting, but a lot of that has to do with physically protecting. So we have to, as men, be physically capable of that. So whether that's,
mm,
carrying, your house catches on fire and you have to carry your loved one out of a burning building, whether it's, chasing your child because your child's getting ready to run into the road, whether it is physically overcoming someone that is trying to do something to someone else, that is intending harm. All of those things come into play. And as men, we are called to be those protectors. So we must, is our responsibility to be physically capable of doing those things. And if you're severely overweight and, you can't walk a few steps without getting out of breath, then you're not living up to that piece of the puzzle. And then the other piece to that is, God has given us our bodies. Our bodies belong to him, and it is our job to steward them well, because at some point in time we do have to give those bodies back to him, because they're not 100% ours in the first place. Everything on this earth, everything in this world is his. So if he's given us these physical bodies to take care of, to carry out his will, to carry out his purpose while we're on this earth, we must take care of them. It is our responsibility to him to do that.
mm, very true, very true. And when we are talking about the strength, also, do you see that discipline in the gym, or gym spilling over into discipline in a man's prayer life or the leadership at home? What do you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. So discipline, that's a big
Mm,
part of the reason that I advocate men going to the
mm,
gym so much, or any kind of physical activity, whether it's the gym or calisthenics or, running or whatever you want to do. But having the discipline, having the or say motivation, but motivation is fleeting. Having the discipline and the responsibility to do those things and to do them consistently and to do them well
mm,
translates into every other area of life. It translates into your job. It translates into your relationship with Christ. It translates into your marriage. It translates into you, as a father to your children, and friendships and brotherhoods, everything like that. And it's an easier starting point, because when we think about, well, I want to be more disciplined with spending time with my kids. It's like, okay, where do I start with that? Most guys don't know where to start with that. But being able to start in the gym and start to build that muscle of discipline,
mm.
it just spills over into every other area of your life. You start to train yourself, you start to train your mind that you are a disciplined man. And then that carries over into your fatherhood and into your marriage and into your relationship with Christ.
Exactly. So this one uh sounds contradictory, but actually not. So uh on the flip side, like there are men who lean so heavily on the faith that they wait for God to move but never take the actions themselves. So how do you balance the surrender with the responsibility?
Mm. Yeah. So
Mm.
faith without works is dead. That's the easiest, quickest way to do that. Um, there's a phrase that I've started using, and it's, don't let your spiritual strength make you think that you're not responsible for your physical strength as well. So obviously, your relationship with Christ is much more important than anything you could ever do with your physical body. Like there's no doubt about that. There's no question on that. That's a period. Um, standpoint, but it's very much a both and. It's we're responsible for, our spiritual lives, we're responsible for our physical lives. It's all of it. Um, there's there's another phrase that we can, kind of use as an example,
Mhm.
and it's kind of that picture of a man leaning on a shovel and he's praying to God to dig him a hole.
Okay.
Like God gives us the tools that we need,
Mhm.
and oftentimes it's our responsibility to take actions with those tools.
I agree. Yeah. Ooh, what a lovely saying, I would say. And have you seen faith become an excuse for inaction in the men you coach?
Not particularly in the men that I coach, because most of them, once they come to me, they're ready to take action. I've definitely seen it, in men, just in culture, in society, in Christian culture in general. Um, they think that because they're strong spiritually, that they don't have to take action, and that's just not the case. Again, we just go back to the faith without works is dead.
Mm. Wow. Lovely. So, if a man listening right now who is stuck or buried under the fear, burnout, doubting his worth, so then what's the very first step he can take today to begin reclaiming his strength and the confidence?
Yeah. So when it comes to confidence,
Mm.
the first thing that we do to start rebuilding that is we start to keep promises that we make to ourselves.
Mm.
So when guys lack self-confidence, oftentimes what has happened is they've told themselves that they were going to do something and then they didn't keep their word.
Okay.
So they've now trained themselves that they can't be trusted. So we have to start to build that trust back up. So we start that oftentimes. The best way to start that is with very, very small things that they can, take action on, that they can knock out, that they can keep that word that they've made to themselves, and also get that small win. So that's how we start. And I preach a lot of the times with, fitness, with nutrition, anything like that. You don't need to completely flip your life upside down all at once. Oftentimes
Mm.
that's what people try to do. And what happens then is they get burnt out really quickly because it's too
Yeah.
much change at one time. So what we need to do is we need to take small, consistent little action steps that are going to build up and stack up over time. So, somebody like that, for instance, my first thing with them is like, if we're going at it from a, physical fitness standpoint, my first thing would be like, okay, man, like how much water do you drink? How hydrated are you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
It's like, man, I don't drink any water. I just drink soda. Cool. So what we're going to start doing is I want you to, drink 64 ounces of water per day, every day. And we're going to do that for a couple weeks. Once you do that, your self-confidence is going to go up because you've kept your word. You are starting to retrain yourself that you can be trusted, that you can trust yourself. And once we get that done, then we're going to add another small step. Once we get that step kind of formed into a habit, then we add another small step and we just keep moving from there until we get them where they want to be.
Wow, that's amazing. Lovely. Great, great. So, Sean, like, thank you so much for this powerful conversation. And I have to say that you have reminded us that overcoming fear and self doubt is not about kind of waiting until we feel ready, but it's all about choosing the faith, building discipline, and taking action even in the face of uncertainty. So that's amazing. And for the men who is listening, uh, ask yourself which one area of your life where fear has kept you on the sidelines, like what what's the one step of faith and action you can take today to reclaim your strength, your purpose, and your leadership. So if Sean's story and coaching resonate with you, I encourage you to connect with him, follow his work, and take that step to the radical ownership. And Sean, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium?
Yeah, so the best way would be either Facebook, Instagram, X, X and Instagram. I am the Sean McManus, and then on Facebook it's just Sean McManus. But any of those is excellent. Just hit me up in a DM, and I'll be happy to have a chat.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put the links into the show notes for easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host Avik, and this is Mind Over Masculinity. Stay strong, stay faithful, and remember that you were made for more. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. It's been a